That unsettling grin that started spreading across screens in the fall of 2024 stopped a lot of people mid-scroll. It looked engineered, sharpened by some computer trick or a makeup team working overtime. It wasn't. That grin belongs to Ray Nicholson, and he was simply born with it. His father, Jack Nicholson, wore the very same look decades earlier, and audiences never forgot the way it crept across his face. So a filmmaker studying Ray in 2024 cast him partly to bring that inherited expression roaring back to life. One face, two generations, almost impossible to tell apart. And Ray is only the first name here, because the film world is full of sons who resemble their famous fathers so closely that the likeness has quietly steered their entire careers. Which raises a question worth sitting with. Does a face like that swing every door wide open, or does it lock you inside your father's shadow for good? Ray Nicholson did not arrive out of nowhere. He spent years taking small roles and building a reputation on his own terms, hoping to be seen as an actor first and a famous son second. Then came the horror sequel released in October 2024, and the ground shifted under him. The director had a clear intention, to echo the eerie expression his father made famous back in 1980, the one that still shows up in lists of the scariest faces ever filmed. Fans connected the dots within hours, all through late 2024 and deep into 2025. Side-by-side images of father and son circulated widely, and people kept doing double takes. Same heavy brows, same sly curl at the corner of the mouth, same eyes that seemed to be hiding a private joke. For Ray, the wave of recognition delivered the kind of attention most young performers chase for a decade and rarely catch. His father built one of the most recognized faces in movie history. Ray, almost by accident, carried a living copy of it into a brand new audience that had never seen the original. If watching a father and son share the exact same face fascinates you, subscribe now, because the stories behind these look-alike families get stranger and more surprising with every name. Back in June 2014, a group of filmmakers faced a tricky casting problem. They needed a young actor who could convincingly become a famous rapper during his fast rise in the late 1980s. Someone the audience would instantly accept. The answer had been sitting inside the family home the entire time. O'Shea Jackson Jr. is the son of Ice Cube, and the two share a nearly identical bone structure. The same wide jaw, the same unblinking level stare. So the son was hired to play the father as a young man on his way up. Here is the detail that makes it uncanny. O'Shea Jr. filmed those scenes at 23 years old, close to the age his father had been during the peak years of his influential rap group. Two men, one age, one shared face, separated only by a few decades of time. When the film arrived in August 2015, critics singled out his performance, and O'Shea Jr. walked away with the launch of a genuine career, rather than a costume he could never peel off. The resemblance had opened the door. His talent kept it open. Tom Hanks raised two sons who drifted toward the camera, though one took a route almost nobody predicted. Truman Hanks, the youngest, earned a mathematics degree from Stanford and spent most of his working life behind the scenes, in the electrical and camera departments rather than standing in front of the lens. Now 30, he still tends to avoid the spotlight whenever he can. Yet for a drama film released in December 2022, a director needed a younger version of Tom's on-screen character, and the most natural choice was already in the family. Truman stepped in and played his own father as a younger man. The likeness carried whole scenes without a single line of explanation. Same soft, watchful eyes. Same gentle way of holding a smile a beat too long. For a young man who clearly preferred cables and lenses to scripts and close-ups, the role became a quiet family keepsake captured on film, a son standing in for the younger version of his dad. It might be the most understated entry on this list, and one of the most touching. Tom's older son, Colin Hanks, absorbed a very different lesson about sharing a well-known face. For years, the public compared nearly every choice he made to his father, weighing him against a career he never asked to inherit. By 2018, he had stopped resisting the comparison. He openly admitted that he had been naive to imagine anyone would treat him as his own separate person, free of the family name. So he flipped the whole thing into a joke. He began poking fun at the endless side-by-side chatter, turning private frustration into something he could laugh at in public. That feeling threads through almost every son gathered here, a peculiar blend of pride and pressure. Looking like a beloved star gets your foot in the door on day one. It also means you get measured against a legend every single morning you show up to work. Colin made peace with it by refusing to take it seriously. Others answered the pressure by fighting hard to prove they were far more than a reflection of the man who came first. If these stories are landing for you, tap like. It genuinely helps push this video out to more people who love a good Hollywood family story. Scott Eastwood chose the opposite path, and he chose it deliberately. The son of Clint Eastwood resembles his father so closely that cashing in on the name would have been the simplest move in town. Scott refused to do it. Early in his career, he went by his mother's last name, Reeves, so no casting director could accuse him of riding his dad's fame straight into a paycheck. He wanted to know whether he could earn the work on his own. And when he did appear in his father's films, Clint handed him nothing. Scott landed a role in one of Clint's projects in 2008, but the man behind the camera treated him no differently than a stranger. In 2014, Scott auditioned for a lead part in another of his father's films, a tense war drama, and Clint flatly turned him down. His own son. Rejected on merit by the person who shared his face. That single story quietly dismantles the popular belief that a famous last name guarantees an easy ride through Hollywood. Sometimes the name makes the climb steeper. Some resemblances stay buried until life drags them into daylight. Joseph Baena grew up without knowing that one of the most famous action stars on the planet was his biological father. In 2011, at just 13 years old, he learned the truth only after the story broke publicly. His father was Arnold Schwarzenegger. The revelation arrived through the media instead of a private family talk, and it rearranged everything Joseph believed about where he came from. What happened next caught almost everyone off guard. Instead of shrinking from the attention, Joseph leaned straight into the one thing that made the resemblance undeniable. He started training in the gym. He also made a pointed choice to keep his mother's surname, Baena, building his own identity, rather than borrowing a household name he could have easily claimed. And the harder he trained, the louder the mirror spoke. His frame, his stance, the shape of his face, every piece of it echoed the man who had once dominated the bodybuilding world long before Joseph was ever born. That echo reached full volume in March 26. Joseph walked onto a bodybuilding stage in Colorado and took first place, across several categories, including the heavyweight class and a novice physique division. Photos from the event spread quickly. He struck the same poses his father had made famous back in the 1970s, and the two physiques looked nearly interchangeable, as if one had been traced from the other. Arnold, for his part, has spoken plainly about how Joseph came into his life. In a 2023 documentary, he confronted the affair behind his son's birth, without hiding, describing what he did as wrong, then praising Joseph as an extraordinary young man he deeply loves. There is even a small twist buried in the timeline. Joseph, born on October 2, 1997, arrived only 5 days after Arnold's other son, Christopher, born on September 27th of the same year. Two brothers, 5 days apart, sharing one father. The family history has not always been smooth, yet the likeness between Arnold and Joseph stays impossible to overlook. Not every look-alike son ends up on the big screen. A few of them turn up on television, and one pulled it off in a way that felt like peering through a window into the past. Michael Consuelos is the son of Mark Consuelos, and in 2021, he joined the teen drama series Riverdale for a single flashback sequence. The show needed a younger version of a character his father already played, a sharp and slippery businessman named Hiram Lodge. So Michael stepped into the youthful version of the exact role his dad performed on that same series. Viewers watching the flashback saw the identical dark eyes and confident half-smile they already recognized from the grown-up version. It was casting made effortless by genetics alone. The father embodies the man in the present, the son embodies the man in his youth, and the audience never pauses to question the switch for even a second. That kind of clean match only happens when a family hands down a face this distinct. Sometimes the likeness runs so deep that a father and son can share the same screen, play a family, and never once strain the audience's belief. Damon Wayans and his son, Damon Wayans Jr., managed exactly that, and more than once. The elder Wayans dropped in as a guest on his son's sitcoms, first on the comedy Happy Endings, and later on Happy Together in 2018, each time playing the on-screen father of the character his real son was performing. The line between reality and script nearly disappeared, and when reporters asked about the arrangement in 2018, the father delivered a line that turned the usual family story upside down. He insisted his son was not hanging on his coattails, he was hanging on his son's. A father cheerfully handing his own fame downward to lift the next generation up. For this pair, the resemblance never felt like a weight to carry. It became a shared stage, passed happily from one Wayans to the next. Proof that a matching face can be a gift instead of a burden. A handful of families take the resemblance and multiply it many times over. Swedish actor Stellan Skarsgård fathered 8 children, and several of his sons walked directly into acting careers of their own. 2 of them, Alexander and Gustav, carry their father's towering frame, angular features, and pale Nordic coloring so clearly that audiences frequently spot the family connection before anyone tells them the surname. One father, one distinctive face, scattered across a whole roster of working performers. It stands as one of the clearest examples of how far a strong family look can travel, not merely from a dad to a single son, but across an entire batch of brothers. Where most families here produced a single striking double, the Skarsgårds produced several, each one carrying a slice of the same face into the industry. The look did not just survive one handoff from father to child. It kept getting passed along, over and over, until it became a family signature the camera could spot from across a crowded room. So circle back to that first question. Does a face borrowed from a famous father throw every door open, or does it trap you in his shadow for good? The honest answer turns out to be both at once. Every son gathered here got noticed faster because of that inherited face, no argument there. And every single one of them still had to prove he was something more than a copy. Some played their fathers as young men and quietly stole the show. One changed his name just to earn a fair audition. One got turned away by his own dad and came back sharper for it. The resemblance was always the starting line, never the finish. If any of these families caught you off guard, or if you found yourself scrolling back just to compare two faces, like this video and subscribe. There are plenty more untold Hollywood family stories waiting in the wings, and the next batch of lookalikes might be even harder to tell apart than these.